Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Through the Fire and the SBN Small Business Network podcast. I am your host, Ryan Wickline. And today I'm very, very excited because we have somebody who's does pretty much exactly the same thing I do. We have two-time author, speaker, and mindset coach, Sandy Cohan. How are you doing today, Sandy?
I'm good, buddy. I'm good. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hey, not a problem, man. I couldn't turn down somebody who teaches pretty much the same thing I do.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. It's
So,
amazing. It's amazing.
yeah,
I love it. Love what I do. I'm sure you do as well. I think that's so important.
yeah. So, the number one question the audience probably has is, who is Sandy Cohen?
That's fair. That's a fair question. Um, so I've spent my entire life in the hockey space, and played at really, really high levels. And once my career was over, um, I got into the coaching part. So I was a professional skills coach for a little over a decade. A lot of pros, a lot of Olympians, a lot of college players. And I think that's probably when I realized that I think probably at my core, I'm probably a teacher, probably a communicator. Um, and absolutely loved that. I never wanted to coach teams. I was always in like the small group, one-on-one skill development business. I think that was always important for me. Um, and really got dialed into the mindset space 7-ish years ago, and I really started noticing or became really interested in what was why were some people making it and why were others not, right? Like what was the determining factor? And when I say it, um, what I really mean is maximizing their potential, right? Like I ultimately don't care what the dream is. I just want to work with people who have the dream, and maybe they don't know how to get there, which is totally fine, but have the passion, have the drive. But uh, my thought was, talent, we were talking about it earlier. I think the talent's a little bit overrated. I think the talent can certainly move needles, but I think it's mindset that kind of moves mountains. So I know it's a long-winded response, but I like to think of myself as a communicator, a teacher, been in the mindset space, mental performance for a long, long time. Written a couple books, which I never thought I'd get to, and love to impact people on a large scale. So a lot of speeches and big format events, but probably driven by a lot of the same things that you're driven by.
Yeah, exactly. Of helping people become better. Like
It's it.
the mind. I mean, I think people get that part wrong so much.
Yeah, I do too. Like, and I know you from your wrestling days. Talent, of course, is relevant, right? Like skills matter, but when I say so, I always talk about this concept of mindset. I very rarely use the phrase mental performance, and I say that strategically because I think the suggestion of mental performance was that there's something wrong with you and you need to be fixed, right? And I think it's 180 degrees the opposite. I don't work with broken people, but I believe that mindset is the foundation of the building, right? So I don't care the first floor, second, third, whatever. If if that mindset component's not dialed in, which I define as belief, attitude, grit, focus, emotional control, discipline, self-awareness, if having mindset is somewhere in the management and the control of those 7 components. Um, so that's always been very relevant for me.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So you talked about what did you notice though when you were looking into everything where why some athletes make it and some don't?
Um, So there's a lot of like the academic side. I mean, I spent a lot of time studying this, but tons of real world experience, both on the playing side, also on the coaching side. Um, and I think it comes down to two main things. I think that there are many components to mindset, but ultimately I think it comes down to grit and focus. I think those are the two where everything starts. Who can manage the moment, right? Not yesterday, last shift, last game, not tomorrow, next week, whatever. Who can manage the moment? Um, and who understands the grind, right? That we're not grinding necessarily today because we're going to win everything tonight. The goal is when we add up all the todays, like that's how you get to where you want to go. So I I think that those were the two biggest ones. And for the younger kids, I think the younger kids typically need clarity, and I think the older kids need accountability. So those were the two biggest components that I think I noticed, which really I think impacted their ability to be competitors. Can they compete?
Yeah, I love how you said the older people need accountability. I
Yep.
mean, when I look at a lot of the coaches that I've seen in like when I went to wrestling rooms, it's like, well, these kids might quit if we make it too hard on them. I'm like, man, you need to raise your standard up for them because why are you going to lower your standard for kids if they don't want to be there? Then you know,
So I love that. I say this. I try to say this as much as I can to larger groups, teams, but even to pro athletes. I love what you just said. The concept of standards, right? Like standards and expectations aren't the same thing. The best of the best, the elite, the achievers, they don't deal in expectations. They deal in standards. Um, but there has to be there have to be platforms to teach them what are how do you build standards, how do you protect them, how do you fight for them, how do you hold yourself accountable to them. And I do think a lot of that comes with environment. Parents, one of the books I wrote is really for parents. How do you support your child? It's not parenting advice, but it's how to the book is called 99 rules every sports parent needs to know to raise great humans and confident athletes. That was the second book that I wrote. But I do love what you said, though, that yes, I think that coaches, true coaches, anybody can scream and yell, right? But if the goal is to empower and coach and help move people to a higher place, that's that has to be in the language of standards, um, and communication. And that should be the goal, in my opinion.
yeah, I completely agree with that. And I mean, I love how you talked about younger athletes need clarity and a vision because they don't know which way they're going. I mean, I do some mindset with some younger kids and they have no clue what they want. So you kind of talking with them about it. It's like, hey, if you don't know what you want, it's kind of hard for me to help you.
Or even for them to kind of we're saying the same thing. I always say that it's like what does success mean? I don't care if you're 10, I don't care if you're 15 or if you're a pro athlete. I ask everybody that question. Help me understand what to play well means, right? So I'm in the hockey space, but you could ask any athlete that. And even at the higher levels, it's amazing the answer to that question, like how'd you play or what, good, like, well, what does good mean? Right? And it's like you could tell very quickly the good is like it's surface deep. Like there really isn't a definition of what success means. So to your point, like, well, if we don't even know where we're going, how are we going to get there? How can you track progress? How can you celebrate progress? How can you kind of bounce back on track if you get off track? So the first one, just like you said, is, well, what does success even mean? And the younger kids, probably even the older ones, but they're very outcome focused, right? Like did we win, lose, made the team, got cut from the team, did you score, not score? Like, did you win the match, lose the match? When the irony is that the best way to achieve the outcomes, right, is to focus on the actions and behaviors that when and if you do them, they lead to the outcomes that you want. But I don't think younger people know that. I didn't when I was that age.
No.
So yeah, right.
Yeah, I think we already hit on that. That we both talked about this. That like at our age, the definition of
Yeah.
mindset was how tough can you be?
Yep. That's right. How long can you be yelled at for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know, I know. But I'm happy that that's changed though.
Yeah.
I think there's a balance, right? I I was always hard when I was a coach, like because I demanded a lot, but the intention was never to belittle, right? It was to encourage, to help build. But younger people now, life is different. There are different distractions, different everything. Um, a lot of that I think was maybe a little bit more inherent in the way that we grew up. I don't think that exists as much with younger people today, but I do think grit can be taught. But I would agree it's times are different. Sometimes for the better, maybe not always for the better, but most of the times.
Yeah. So, how would you go about teaching grit in your athletes?
Well, I think you first kind of have to define like what it is. So what I was kind of talking about earlier, it's the willingness to do hard things. Kind of the old proverb, you fall seven, get up eight. Understanding that it's not winners and losers, it's winners and learners, right? Like there's a different mentality there. Um, we spend a lot of time kind of what does the growth zone mean versus what do comfort zones mean? Um, but I think probably the biggest one is plotting the journey, right? Like grit ultimately is um, passion and perseverance for long-term goals. So the payoff is not tomorrow, but we need all of the todays, to build the eventual win. So it's a lot of kind of introspection, but it's a lot of focus work, and a lot of building. I mean, it's things are a process. Nothing happens overnight. But I do believe that tough times don't last. Tough people last. But sometimes you kind of have to help them understand what that is.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah. Because
One thing,
wrestlers are gritty. Wrestlers are
yeah,
gritty by nature. Yeah.
yeah, they're definitely some of the toughest, hardest nosed people I've ever met. But I used to work at Nationwide Arena in Columbus. And so when they first opened, when they started the Columbus Blue Jackets, and I'll tell you what, some of them hockey players are pretty great athletes in my mind. I mean, to be able to skate and then do what they can with the puck,
Yep. Yep.
I was
A
very
lot.
impressed.
A lot of different than any other sport, right? Because if you're playing soccer, it's like you just show up and you start playing soccer. Like there's no running training, right? But there's a skating component. I mean, there's a lot going on, but a lot of these younger people, um, it's a sport that they play throughout their childhood. And my intention has always been, confidence work, belief work, that should be plugged in early. But, you know, too many times I think athletes get to a point where any adversity throws them totally into a tailspin. They can't avoid it. They certainly can't navigate through it. They can't reset. So those are basically kind of what my books are about. But that I think is a challenge for a lot of the modern day athlete, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You touched a little bit on this. What does it take to build confidence in young athletes, and where do most parents and coaches get it wrong?
I love this question. I love this question. So I I I explain to people, I encourage them to think. confidence and belief aren't the same thing. So I think a lot of people are out there chasing, I want to be confident. I want to be confident. When I try to explain it that if like you think about a tree outside, what you see above ground, that's confidence. What you don't see below ground, that's belief. So in that example, like, no roots, no tree, no belief, no confidence. So I think a lot of younger players and parents also are trying to empower their kids. They want what's best for their kids. Um, you know, Go out and feel confident, go out and feel it. But so much of it happens away from the rink in my case, and the fields of others, that tapping into belief, reminding yourself of past successes versus trying to convince yourself that you're worthy, right? So I can ask any player to kind of tap into a memory, a moment, a highlight reel from last year, something that they did that was just great. And as soon as I ask them to do it, like they start smiling, right? Um, they can remember details about it. They get a little fire in their belly. And I always ask them, I say, yeah, I said, you know what that feeling's called? That feeling is called confidence. But the way that we got there, we didn't just set out to try to be confident. Like, you had to kind of fill it. So there's a lot of belief, a lot of work, I think, kind of um, away from the rink or away from the arena. Has to be daily. But I think a lot of it really has to do with trying to discipline yourself to focus on the things that you want to keep inside your head versus trying to push the bad stuff out, right? Like those are two totally separate things. So a lot of it starts with the belief metrics.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that because that's the first area I start with is, hey, you've been successful before.
It's so
Let's
great.
let's write this down and show you that you've been successful at times. I'm like, people don't understand confidence comes from doing hard things.
That's right. That's right.
not
And
from
and
just
le-
not from
yeah,
just me talking about it.
that's right. And that's what I meant by reminding versus convincing. That I did it even when I was younger too, that like, you see a younger athlete or even older athlete, they're trying to convince themselves that they're ready, trying to convince themselves that they're good enough, try to convince themselves that they're focused, when it's a totally different approach if you just, tap into when or if you've done it before. Everybody has a highlight reel. Um, and as soon as you do that, there's like a calm that kind of comes over you. The pressure comes off the shoulders, your posture's different, and your mindset starts to shift. So confidence, not a feeling, can be grown, developed, built, improved upon. But I agree with you. It's tapping into past wins, I think, is
Yeah.
absolutely necessary.
Yeah. So mentally speaking, what separates a good athlete from a great one?
Um, I think ultimately it's the ability to, I'm going to say, fail fast and bounce forward. Fail fast, bounce forward. So, like, my favorite phrase, right, is this kind of now what? Um, because everything ultimately is a now what, right? Like, I don't care what you can tell me is happening, or as bad of a situation or as good of a situation. Right now has to be the most important moment, right? So if right now is the most important moment, then nothing can happen that's more important than what is the most important, right? So I think what separates is the ability to kind of stay present. Stay present. Um, you see pro athletes do it all the time, that, pick any sport, and there's no difference between a random Wednesday night game in Columbus versus a home game in Madison Square Garden on a Friday night. Like, pro athletes, it's game time no matter what. So that ability, I think, to stay present, um, and protect the good thoughts, not focus on, the negative what ifs. What if it doesn't work? What if I fail? What if I get cut? It's shifting to the, well, what if it all works out? What if this is the best game I've ever played? What if the TV crew's here and it's like I can play the what if game also, but it's perspective. Like which what if
Yeah.
game do you want to play? Yeah. So
What's one thing you do to help them stay in the present?
um well, it's a whole bunch of phrasing, a whole bunch of mantra work. I love the now what phrase, but um I of course for the folks that can handle it, there's breathing, there's visualization techniques, but the ultimate, I think, is understanding that there is a difference between what I would call like broad awareness versus deep focus. Broad awareness, I think, is you're sitting in front of a window, and you can see you're like, oh, there's a squirrel, there's a car, oh, there's my neighbor, oh, it's raining, blah blah blah. Like that's awareness. That's not focus. Focus is like looking into a mirror, right? So, one, I think it's kind of getting them into that place, but um, understanding that there's a difference between awareness and focus um, is really, really key for kind of right here, right now. And I don't pick your sport. Like you are where your feet are. My grandmother used to say that to me when I was a kid. Like you are where your feet are. Like right here, right now is the most important. So,
Yeah,
um, right,
good advice.
yeah.
How would you help athletes bounce back from failure?
Um, One, I think sometimes failure or the concept of failure seems a little bit more relevant if you don't really know what success is, right? So again, without identifying what does to play well mean or to compete well, what does that mean? Um, a lot of times it's just bigger than an outcome, right? It's the actions and the behaviors. So most of the work that I do is getting them so dialed in with what are the actions that when and if you do them, they lead to the outcomes that you want. But a lot of it is helping younger people understand really that everything in life, certainly in their athletic life, has to fall into one of three buckets. Like there's things you can control, there's things you can impact, and then everything else has to be let go. The challenge comes where what really can be controlled versus what's impacted, and the controllables are your attitude, your belief, your focus, your emotions. Um, all the other stuff that they think they can control is really just stuff they can impact. But the irony is that the only way they're going to get the results that they want is by impacting what they can impact because they controlled what they could control. So a lot of the failure part is I don't know if it was failure or not. Um, but outcomes, those don't always define a player. Last shift, last game. I think success is something bigger than just an outcome. But I think the key phrase is what is the most important right now? And compete time is do time. It's play time. It's not think time. It's do time. The analysis can come later, but it's got to be it's got to be focus time now.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. How do you get them to handle pressure?
Um, I think this is probably like the most mistrained opportunity that, unless trained in pressure, there's no possible way to deal with pressure once it happens. So, again, a lot of visualization works, thinking about the moment, being prepared for the things that you can control. The more time you kind of spend on that track, once the it happens, it's it's not like it might be brand new for you in terms of physically when you've gone through it, but if the mind has gone through it 5,000 times before today, it's really not a new experience. But that's again, I think the clarity versus accountability. That's the age gap. But that has to be taught. Um, it has to be explained. It has to be practiced. Um, One word focus is a great thing, picking a word, a belief system, identifying what that is, and just staying very, very dialed into that. But I think a lot of it's perspective. It's not always the glass is half full or half empty. Like sometimes the glass is refillable. Like there's a third one, right?
Yeah. Man, I love how you hit on that topic of, hey, it needs to be trained and it needs to be practiced. I mean, that's something that most people don't understand because I watch kids go through these pressure situations and they fold. It's like if you would actually train your mind to see that moment before you get
That's
there,
right.
things will get a lot easier for you.
And a lot of it is understanding. One of the things about pressure is also relieving the weight, I think, for a lot of athletes that, you know, again, it's the winning and learning, right? But also, why would you know how to do any of those things unless taught or shown, right? It doesn't just magically happen. So that's kind of the grit. That's sort of the teaching them to be competitors. Um, Preparation means something, standards mean something, like nothing. What we see on TV, pick any sport, what they don't show is what happens or what happened for the players to get there. Like, no one sees the grind, no one sees the late nights, the hours and hours of practice, not just physical. Um, that that's just one sliver, right? That's like the tip of the iceberg, but the other 90% of the iceberg is below the water that
Yeah.
nobody sees, right? Um, so it's constant and it has to be taught. Has to be taught.
Yeah. What role do the parents play in all this mental development in your mind?
Love this question. Love this question. And this is a disclaimer. I'm not telling anybody how to parent their child, right? But I do know that parents, my parents did the same thing. Um, you know, Sometimes good intentions aren't always delivered in the manner in which we think that they are, right? So parents, while they think they are building up, um, helping, rides to and from practices or games, those are drastically important times. And kids ultimately, they don't want another coach. They don't need another analyst. They need a parent. They need a stable guiding light that ultimately is teaching them, integrity, character, how to be a competitor versus, did you win, did you lose? Because those intangibles, the character, the integrity, the stick to itiveness, how you treat others, how you show up, uh, that happens long after the jersey gets hung up for the final time, right? Like that's the legacy. But parents, they want what's in the best interest of their kids. They want to protect the kids, but you know what? A lot of times, like, you don't have to protect every fall. Teach them to get back up. Don't always worry so much about the bruise. Like the bruise is what builds the backbone, in my opinion. Um, and you're not reliving it's their journey. Don't dissect, drive the car. Like that's that's the message. But I think they got to celebrate the effort. Those are the things that matter. The compete. Um, and kids are watching. They're looking at if parents are talking to the coach or comparing the players out. Again, they need a stable force, They don't need another analyst. So I think when that becomes the goal, and it's hard for parents, I understand that. Um, it's very, very important. So that's why this book. So it's 99 rules every sports parent needs to know. I'll send you a copy. They're quick one hitters. You can flip open to any page. And it, again, it's not the practical rules that kind of challenge, how parents think, how they support. It's not a book on how to parent, but it is a book on how to um, raise young people that are great humans, and therefore they typically can become great athletes.
Yeah, that's some great advice right there. So you wrote those books, the 99 Rules, one for parents and one for athletes. What inspired you to write them?
You know what? Honestly, I love information. But admittedly, when I was younger, I didn't love to read books. I'm not going to say I love to read books, but this is the kind of book that I would have loved to have had when I was younger, right? So the first one is called 99 Rules Every Athlete Needs to Know. And literally, there are 99 rules, like they're gritty, great titles, maybe 10 or 11 lines, a good kind of punchy close that after you read it, you feel something. You can underline it, you can take stuff away from it, open it up to any page, take it with you, highlight stuff. Um, so the first one originally was for hockey players, and then I said, well, gosh, you know, I think actually maybe it was my dad that said, like if you took out the word hockey and put in athlete, it doesn't pick your sport, right? Like these are all the lessons. So the athlete book was first, and some of the people who were loving that, some of the parents said, I wish you had one of these for parents. Um, so I think I probably added up everything that I've seen over the years and studied and experiences that were the wrong ways to do things, and then flipped it so I would know the right things to write. But they're tools, they're resources. I think they make you feel better. Both of them combined, maybe 5 months. Both of them have been out. We've sold like almost 1,000 copies, which
Wow.
yeah. So I say that with no ego. Very, very proud of that. Um, just to be able to give an athlete, right, a young kid that can't even get out of their phone, something that all of a sudden they're reading like before practice or on the way to a tryout or something like that. That really means a lot to me. So
Yeah. I love how
that's
you wrote one for parents too, because I completely agree that a lot of parents, they, and I don't want them to take it the wrong way, but they hinder their child's progress with their own limiting beliefs, and they put those limiting beliefs on their kids and wonder why they don't progress as much as what they should.
I think again, well intended, maybe not correctly executed.
Yeah.
And it's tough. It's tough when it's your own kid. I interact with younger athletes all the time, and maybe some of the stuff I say to them, a parent's like, I've been saying that for 4 years. And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, one, you're mom or dad. And two, I think you've been saying that, but maybe the way in which you've been saying it is like beating
I
them into submission.
I said I hear the same thing too. Like, man,
Yeah,
I told him the exact same thing. I'm like,
that's
well,
right.
they just
That's
need a
right.
different person to say as somebody that wasn't you.
Yeah. And I've always prided myself on, you know, I can look at a player or a family, like my only interests are the best interests of the player and the family, right? Like ultimately, I don't care who they play for next year,
Yeah.
like I'm honestly, and that's been my whole career. That's why I never wanted to coach teams. I just wanted to kind of be in the development business, um, to be able to try to make a difference. Even if it was, at the beginning, one athlete at a time, and it kind of grows and grows and grows. But that always was rewarding for me. And look, it's not hard. It's not easy being a kid. It's not easy being a parent, right? And everybody has the ultimate goals in mind, you hope. But sometimes I think they need a good intermediary that really has
Yeah.
everybody's best interest in mind, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I
So,
completely agree about that.
right? I know you've probably seen it too. Like sometimes you're
Yeah.
just like, holy cow.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting at times, but like I said, I love it. I mean, I love, and you know as well as I do, you have to be on a firm footing with the parents too to get them to support you in what you're doing.
It's got to be trust. Honestly, like
Yeah.
that's why I said at the beginning when I love that question. Who are you? That's who I think I am. Hockey's always what I've done, and it's been my whole life, and all over the world with it. But I think at my core, I'm a teacher, a communicator, and so I take great pleasure in trying to help people. In my case, the hockey community maximize their potential again. And I say this so sincerely that I work with some high level athletes, but even sometimes the younger ones that maybe haven't achieved all they would want, um, if they learn through hockey and through the work I do with them about mindset, and if that kind of stirs the engine or puts them out of their comfort zone, and they use that as fuel to go chase, maybe they want to be the best vet ever, or I don't, whatever, they want to be an architect. Like that's a win. I see that as a win because I just want them to maximize their potential, you know um and I think when parents understand that, that's why I think this field that we're in is so important, because it's about growing people that help building people that can go achieve great things. But you know all of
Yeah.
those same metrics, they come into play.
I said that's the same thing I kind of agree, and like you hit on it too, is hey, I'm just using the sport to push you to be a better person, to teach you how to grow and to chase all your dreams, no matter what they may be in the future.
That's right. Control what you can control, have fun. Rule number one in the player book is have fun. Like, and there's, it's quick, it's kind of punchy, but any athlete can read this, and there are a lot of reminders in it that kind of slows it down a little bit. And exactly, because as you and I both know, like one day the lights go out, the jersey comes
Yeah.
down, and that's not the main identity anymore. But if what lasts, if the legacy I think that lasts is learning how to believe in yourself, having a good attitude, being gritty, being focused, learning how to control your emotions, the discipline that you mentioned, and being self-aware, like that sounds to me like a pretty good human being.
Yeah. Exactly. So, what is your favorite rule from the series, and why does it matter?
Uh I love the have fun rule. That's why that's number one in the player book, because I think that gets overlooked a lot, right? I think it's very important for athletes of all levels. You got to remember why you are playing. And I'm not one to say it's just a game, blah blah blah. Sometimes that could be accurate, but you love to play, you compete because you love it, and you play because you love to compete. And the minute that fun element goes away, you're in trouble, and you
Yeah.
should spend your time doing something else. Um, when you see a lot of pro guys and gals, they're smiling. That's definitely a sign of a really strong mindset culture. When people are having fun, they're remembering the fun part. There's a sense of calm, I think, that sometimes can come over us. So, on the player side, that's my favorite rule. Um, on the parent side, it's I use a little bit some colorful language, but it's reminding parents that it's the kid's journey, right? Like you're not reliving your journey, it's their journey. And you can't, just because you or me or the parents had it tough, like that doesn't mean that we have to have that be the same world that the kid lives in, because how we had it, hopefully it will be better. So I think it's reminding the parents, also how to deal with that it's not
Yeah.
it's not their journey, it's the kids.
Yeah. So I got a couple of questions that may be a little off topic from this, but
Yeah.
my old college professor would want me to ask you this stuff because we used to talk about this all the time in our classes. Like, why do some athletes you think burn out once they get to high school or college?
Um, to be honest with you, I think it's mindset first and foremost. Mindset is if you don't have the tools to be able to handle um the right here and right now, then the right here, right now becomes overwhelming. You can't manage it. You can't find a way to calm it or enhance it or maximize it. So I think that burnout typically happens from how our mind interacts with our surroundings, right? Maybe we've just hit a roadblock that we can't celebrate our wins anymore, or we can't find a way to control our emotions anymore. When you plug that into the system, it kind of, what pops out is, oh, I'm burned out, I can't do it anymore. But uh, normally, unless you're old like me and your body's broken down, that's typically when the physical limitations, I think, kick in. But for the younger folks, it's the mind is nasty. Like, the mind can, if you don't mind, it doesn't matter. The mind can hang in there, right? And when you think, I think it's David Goggins or the Navy SEAL stuff. When you think you're 100% gassed, like, you still have 60% left in the tank. It's
Yeah.
just, you know, how are you built? How's your mind? So I think burnout a lot of time comes from, it's not a healthy balance. Something's off in the thought process, um, and you're not seeing it clearly from all sides.
Okay. How much do you think training year round plays a part in burnout and injuries?
I think it's probably age specific. I always want, especially the younger, I always want my athletes to be athletes first and foremost, right? Like, better athletes typically are better hockey players. Um, I love when they go off and do something else, go play another sport, maybe where you're not the dominant, maybe where you're learning other aspects about a team, using different muscles, getting something else going. So I think breaks are very, very important, um, physically and mentally. Go do something else. Go be a kid. You're 13 years old. You're a kid. Go be a kid. Um, so I think those things are very, very important. But so I think training, from a step back, you can have a training plan that is 12 months long, but part of that training plan needs to include doing other things, training for other things, planning out time when you're not doing things. The planning out of not doing things, that is a form of training. That's recovery, that's rejuvenating, right? But the mental side is daily. I mean, that's how you see yourself in the world. That's daily. But so I think it's probably sports specific. I train very, very hard. The athletes I work with, they train very, very hard. So I do think that some bodies can handle it mentally and physically, some can't. So you got to kind of know where your limits are. But even the most tenacious, at some point you have to dim the switch. You can't be on 24/7.
Yeah. Like, I completely agree with what you said because even tell a lot of the kids I work with, once you don't need to be training and being so sport specific until you about get into high school because you can catch those other guys that have been doing it for years before you. Once you get to high school, I know you can catch them. I've done it. So, like, the other times, just focus on growing as an athlete and being a better person. Go take breaks.
Love that. So much of development at any level is can be done away from the activity. Especially during the summer for hockey players. Like I tell players all the time, there's so much that you can be doing away from the rink that I'm not talking about at home, like shooting pucks at home. I'm talking about thoughts and focus exercises, highlight reels, mantras, handling adversity. I mean, there's so much that can be done. Um, but I don't think enough. I think it's changing, but I don't think enough organizations are coaching it, because I see it every day. Even pro athletes, they don't know how to handle it. Um, but I agree. So much can be done away from fill in the blank. Um, but I do think the mental side, the mindset side, is something that should be consistent, because like you said, that's growing a great person. You're going to be whatever happens with hockey, whatever
Yeah.
happens with wrestling, whatever, you're going to be a better person, a better brother, a better husband, eventually a better wife, a better whatever, if you're going inside out, always, always, always.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that when I was younger,
Yeah.
but I know that's true now.
So, what is your kind of your take on all these national level tournaments at that early youth age?
Um, I think the easy answer is it's too much too soon. I don't make generalizations like that because everybody's different, and every culturally there's different parts of the country. Hockey means something different in Minnesota than it does in Alabama. Nothing wrong with either one. It just means something different. Um, my whole thing is find something, be passionate about it, don't quit. And for some, that means pushing the envelope constantly. Um, I think as long as the coaching is good and the experiences are good, I'm all for it. I think too often, right? Because at the end of the day, they're just kids, like kids being kids or younger people. And normally it's the adults, right, who are messing it up, right? So I think competition is good. I love it. I think downtime is good, but I think competition is good. I think winning is important. Um, I think showing up is important. I think grinding through adversity, learning how to do that, whether you feel like it or not. I think the discipline is important. I've never met anybody, you probably the same way, that's achieved great things that wasn't disciplined. Like it doesn't exist.
That happen.
Right? It doesn't happen. So I look at them less as like, I don't think no one's NHL bound at age 11. So I don't think it's relevant for those reasons, but I think the competition is relevant because I think anytime you can learn how to compete, show up, dig deeper, um, push yourself, push others, I think those are important lessons. And those typically make better athletes, better everything.
Yeah, I completely agree. What is one book you'd recommend for on personal development or mindset?
Well, besides my books, um, I I like a lot of stuff written by doctors. Like I kind of I like the medical stuff. So there's a couple of doctors out there that have written some pretty good ones on flow state and breathing. But if you really want to know a great one, there's a book by I think it's Angela Duckworth, and it's about grit. It's a fantastic book, and she is like a grit expert, and it's fantastic. Very clinical. I shouldn't say that. Clinical, definitely backed up by years and years and years of clinical work. So it is kind of academic, but um, it's fantastic. It's called Grit.
I love it. I mean, that is one trait that sure can be used and developed in younger athletes.
And anybody, I
Yeah.
mean,
But
anybody.
if you develop it early, it really sticks though when you get older.
Yep, I agree. I agree. Yep.
What are your short term and long term goals?
Um, Short term is to keep putting out uh content that I think impacts the people I work with and makes them better, challenges them. Um, the long-term goals are to keep really pushing on the speaking. I really like trying to impact as many people as I can on the importance of mindset. So a lot of times, if I'm speaking, it happens to be athletes or parents and athletes, big organizations, but I really want to do more of that. Um, because I just think it's a good energy, and um, I wish that I was exposed to those sorts of things when I was younger, um, because so many of the feelings inside your head, am I good enough? What's going on? Blah blah. All the thoughts that we used to think we were crazy.
Yeah.
Um, they're normal, and I think it's okay to have. I think it's good to have someone that's been up there, done that, been there, works with pro athletes, competed at the highest level to say, I felt the exact same thing. And um, there's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. And if anything, hopefully you can be better than I was when I was your age or better than your parents were, right? Because you had a better foundation. So
Yeah.
both, yeah. But that's a good question. I like that question.
Yeah. I love how you said some of the stuff you said. It's like because once that clicks in your head, you're like, man, I just want to go help people, give back what I've just unlocked in my own self and give back to help these other people with.
Yep. Yeah. And I honestly, when you're younger, like, I want to be a zillionaire, do this, do that. Everyone has to feed their family, and I always said I would only do what I loved doing. Um, so that is kind of what I've done my whole life. Um, when you get older, I think you start to say, you know, what sort of impact can you have? And for me, at least, it's genuine, and um, I like trying to have people get to a place where they said, I never thought I could blank, and then they did it. And like I didn't do it, they did it. But
Yeah.
sometimes I think it helps to, have someone walking beside you.
Yeah. That's what I always tell everybody when they're like, oh man, they did it. I'm like, I didn't help. Like I was just along for the ride. I was just somebody to talk to and a support system. They did it because they put all the work
Right.
in. Like if
Yep.
they wouldn't have put the work in, they wouldn't be anywhere without.
You know what I think we're like? I think we're like the guardrails, right? Like
Yeah.
when they kind of get off, sometimes we got to keep it really
Yeah.
narrow, so they have to go this direction. Sometimes we give them a little leeway. Sometimes we got to tilt it down so they pick up momentum. But
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's we're steering them.
Yeah.
And yeah,
But
it's like
that
I
is
didn't. Yeah,
the
they
best
did it.
experience though. The best experience when those lights in them eyes kick on, they're like, oh my God, I
Yep.
can do this, when they
Yep.
finally start believing in themselves and realize that they can do it.
I agree that to this day, one of the most rewarding things that I ever had in my coaching life, this is probably 10 years ago or something like that, that I never really, I work with a lot of high-end athletes, but I just wanted them to have grind, right? Like, I'll work with you, you just got to have grind. So I don't, whether you have college aspirations, pro aspirations, if you just want to grind, I'm here to help. And there was a kid who was like, I just want to make the junior varsity hockey team. I don't want to play in college. Like, I just want to make the team. Um, and this kid grinded with me like all summer, right? I mean, just multiple days a week, was so committed, ended up making the team. Wasn't like a stud or a standout, Only played like 2 years, I think, at that level. Um, but later told me that that experience was like the jump off point for him to chase something academically that he wanted to do. Um, it had nothing to do with hockey. And that was probably the first time where I was like, oh my gosh, like I just made like a significant difference in this younger person's life. I'm not saying that because of me. I'm talking about how
Yeah.
it made me feel what he said.
Yeah.
Um, and this like kid, who even knows if he's even skating anymore, right? But it like wasn't about that. And I know you know this, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't about that. Yeah.
Yep. How can people get a hold of you?
So my website is it's mentaledgehockey.com. I'm working on a branded website. It's not ready yet, but my books are there, mentaledgehockey.com. Mental Edge Hockey on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Um, I've talked to a lot of parents and athletes that maybe aren't hockey players, always willing to talk. My expertise is kind of in hockey. But from the books, people can go, they can buy digital books there. I do courses. But Mental Edge Hockey, and then my email address is just Sandy at mentaledgehockey.com. But love chatting with people, even if someone's like, hey, my kid's a golfer, like pull out the sport. I love to just chat about it.
Yeah. Is there anything we haven't covered that you want to talk about?
Uh, you're you're super thorough. No, honestly, it was I love what you're doing. I like your story, and um I love talking to other people that do what like I don't think you do. I don't feel threatened by any of it.
No.
Like yeah, I just love people that are trying to make a difference, and it's like
Yeah.
I learn stuff from you listening to you. Um so no, I mean it's
Yeah.
been a
I
it's
mean,
I
and that's
really
what it's
it's been a
about to
great
me
hour.
is like, let's learn from each other and help more people. I
I
said, I'm
agree.
all about collaborating. I'm not in no competition with anybody.
No.
It's all about
I
helping people.
and that this is just my opinion because everybody's not like that. That's not like yay us or anti them, but I have noticed that it feels more authentic when the people who say that, like when we have conversations like this, because the ones who don't, it's like I don't think it's about me anymore. Like my career is over. My
Yeah.
playing days are over, right? So no, it's been amazing chatting with you, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Maybe our paths will meet again. We can go on a speaking tour together and help more people.
I'm there. I'm there. But I'm in Florida, so you should come here. It's nicer here.
I definitely want to get out of Ohio. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
too cold. It's too cold here in the winters for me anymore.
Yep. I'm done with
Okay.
snow. We've been down here for about 5 years. I've moved on from snow.
I don't blame you. So,
Yeah.
final question. What is one piece of advice you'd like to leave our listeners with about overcoming adversity?
I would say two things. First thing is focus on the path, not the trees, right? Focus on the way through, not the obstacles, right? Because thoughts are just thoughts. Thoughts aren't facts. So I would encourage them to deal in facts, even kind of the negative thoughts. I'd always say, you know what? Is there any evidence to support that? And I would encourage them to deal in facts. And I think probably my most favorite quote of all time, by a very, very famous and humble hockey player, Gordie Howe. He said, you walk like you're the king, or like you don't care who the king is. Right. And it wasn't about him like being cocky. It was just believe, like believe in yourself, and you don't have to tell others, but you do have to believe it.
Great advice right there. Sandy, I can't thank you enough for coming on here today. We had I had a great conversation with you about mindset. I love talking about mindset.
No, I appreciate it. Honestly, man, keep doing this great stuff. And I hope our paths cross again. And thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah. Well, guys, that's going to be all the time we have here today. Remember, the only way to get what you want is go through the fire.